All right. So uh, everyone listening knows that at some point we all have to face this, what to put for reason for leaving on job applications.
Right.
And it always seems so simple, but I'm sure there's got to be more to it than just like, just writing the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, for sure.
We have this article here called Reason for Leaving on Job Application, a professional guide. And I am really curious to see what's in there.
Well, I think you'll be surprised that this tiny little section can reveal a whole lot more than you think to potential employers.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's like this little window into your work history and how you handle professional situations.
So there's actually strategy involved. It's
Mhm.
not just about like, just being honest.
Oh, absolutely.
Interesting.
Employers are reading between the lines trying to figure out things about your professionalism or like, are there any red flags?
Red flags.
Are there any red flags and what are your overall career goals? Like they're trying to paint a picture of you as an employee just from this one little section.
Wow. Okay, so professionalism. I get that no one wants to come across as like a complainer, right?
Right.
But red flags, well, what kind of red flags are we talking about here?
Okay, well, imagine you're the hiring manager and you get an application that says personal reasons
Yeah.
or seeking new opportunities as the reason for leaving. Wouldn't that make you a little suspicious?
I mean, yeah, kind of like, what are they hiding?
Exactly.
Or maybe they just didn't even think about it very much,
Yeah.
which also isn't a great impression.
Exactly. So even simple phrases like that can set off alarm bells. You know, they might also be looking for patterns like, are you someone who jumps from job to job a lot without good reasons?
Oh, yeah. I guess that could look like you're not very reliable or committed.
Right.
So how do we avoid accidentally waving these red flags? I know the article has these lists of like acceptable and avoidable reasons,
Mm.
but honestly, some of them seem kind of obvious.
Yeah, some of them are pretty straightforward, like relocation or going back to school. But then there are some that need a little more finesse, like company culture fit, which we see a lot more of these days.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone's talking about company culture.
Right,
But how do you even explain that on an application without sounding like, negative?
right.
Like, I hated the culture at my last job, so I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. You have to frame it positively so you focus on what you're looking for instead of what you're running away from.
Okay, so instead of just putting like better company culture,
Yeah.
what could you say?
Well, think about what kind of culture matters to you specifically.
So maybe something like, I'm looking for an environment that's more collaborative where I can contribute my ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe you really thrive in a fast-paced environment and your last job was too slow-moving.
That makes sense. So you're tailoring it to the company and the role.
Right.
Okay, so there's another reason I wanted to touch on, and it's one that people always seem to struggle with. What about when you're looking for better work-life balance?
Yeah, that's a hard one because you want to be dedicated to your work, but also honest about needing balance in your life. It's about finding that sweet spot.
Right, you don't want to seem like you're going to be talking out early all the time,
Right.
but also like boundaries are important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how do you say it without sending the wrong message? Well, instead of just putting better work-life balance, you could try to be more specific about what kind of balance you want.
So like, I'm looking for a company that values work-life balance and maybe offers flexible work arrangements or something like that.
Exactly. Or you could say you're looking for a role that lets you focus on your work without having to sacrifice your personal well-being.
That's good advice.
Oh.
Okay, I think now we have to talk about one of the tougher ones.
Yeah.
Termination for cause. I mean, how do you even begin to explain that on a job application?
It definitely needs some careful thought, but it can be done. You just have to be honest without getting defensive,
Okay.
and really focus on what you learn from the whole experience.
So you're saying don't try to sugarcoat it or pretend it didn't happen?
Definitely not. Employers can check your employment history anyway, so trying to hide it will just hurt you in the end.
Okay, so honesty is key, but how do you explain it without ruining your chances?
Think of it as a learning experience. Briefly explain why you were terminated, but don't dwell on the negative stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And then focus on the steps you've taken to improve and how this experience has made you a better candidate.
So instead of just saying, I was fired, you could say something like, I was let go because of brief explanation, and it was rough, but I took the opportunity to reflect on what happened, and now I'm better at specific skills or something like that.
Exactly. By highlighting that, you're self-aware and that you're committed to growth, you can turn a negative into a positive. You're basically saying, hey, I made a mistake, but I learned from it and I'm better for it.
That's really smart. Okay, so we talked about some of the harder reasons for leaving. What about the ones that are usually seen as safe, like career advancement or seeking new challenges? Those seem pretty self-explanatory, but is there anything we should keep in mind?
Well, even though they're generally acceptable, you still don't want to be generic. Instead of just saying you want to move up, connect it to the specific job you're applying for and the company's values.
So for example, if you're applying for a manager position and your reason is career advancement, you could say something like, I'm excited to take on more leadership responsibilities and contribute to a company that values innovation.
Exactly. By aligning your goals with the companies, you show that you've actually done your research and you're genuinely interested. It's like you're saying, I'm not just looking for any promotion. I want to work for a company that shares my values.
It's all about making that connection so you're not just sending out applications to every job out there.
Right.
Okay, so we talked about avoiding being generic, even for the good reasons.
Right.
What else should we remember when writing our reason?
I think besides being specific and tailoring it to the company and the job, the most important thing is to be genuine. Employers can spot a canned response from a mile away.
So it's not about trying to guess the right answer. It's about being honest about why you're leaving and saying it in a way that makes sense for the company and the job.
Yeah, because really, the reason for living is your chance to tell your story and show why you're the best person for the job. It's a chance to highlight that you're self-aware, you're professional, and that you're looking for the right fit for both you and the company.
That's a great point.
Right.
It's not just about getting any job. It's about finding the right opportunity where you can thrive.
Yeah.
And being honest about why you're leaving is a big part of that.
Absolutely. And, this is making me realize that this whole thing isn't just about impressing employers. It's also about taking a step back and looking at your own career path.
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve? What's important to you? What kind of work environment do you do best in?
Wow. So we're using this question on a job application to do some serious self-reflection.
Right.
I love that. Okay, we covered a lot today, but I have a feeling there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how much we can learn just by digging into something like this.
I know.
It's not just about filling out an application. It's about really understanding our careers and what we want.
Yeah. And what's important to us.
Exactly.
It's like a mini career therapy session.
Right.
Okay, so we've been talking about how to handle these different reasons for leaving and how to be honest and specific and all that.
Right.
But I'm curious, have you seen any examples in your own experience of people who just nailed this part of the application?
Oh, yeah. Over the years, I've seen so many applications, and the ones that always stand out are the ones that go beyond just the surface level.
Yeah.
And they connect the dots between their past experience, their reason for leaving, and where they want to go next.
Oh, so it's like telling a story almost.
It is. It's about creating a story that shows the employer why you're making this move and how it all fits into your career path.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. So let's say someone is applying for a management position, and their reason for leaving is seeking opportunities for leadership and growth. A really strong response could be something like, in my previous role, I excelled at mentioned specific achievements. However, I reached a point where I felt I had limited opportunities to lead and mentor others. And then they could say, I'm eager to join a company where I can use my skills and experience to guide a team and contribute to the company's success.
Okay, so they're not just saying they want to be a manager. They're painting this picture of I'm ready for the next step, and this is why I'm the perfect person for this.
Exactly. It's concise, specific, and it shows their passion for leadership. They've basically taken their reason for leaving and turned it into a compelling story about their career growth.
That's so much better than just saying I want a management job.
Right.
Okay, so storytelling is important. What other tips do you have for making your reason stand out?
Well, one thing that can be really powerful is using numbers whenever you can, quantify your results.
Oh, instead of just saying I increased sales,
Right.
you can say something like I implemented a new strategy that resulted in a 15% increase in revenue.
Exactly, because numbers just carry more weight.
Yeah, they're more concrete.
They add credibility to what you're saying. It shows that you actually delivered results.
It's like show, don't tell, but for your job application.
Right.
Okay, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier about company culture.
Yeah.
We were talking about how it's important to be specific. When you're mentioning culture, fit as a reason for leaving, can you give us some examples of how someone might do that?
Sure. Let's say you're someone who loves working in a collaborative environment where everyone's ideas are valued. You could say something like, I'm seeking a company that really encourages teamwork and open communication where I can use my creative problem-solving skills and learn from all sorts of different perspectives.
I really like that it gives a good sense of what kind of place they're looking for and how they see themselves fitting in.
Exactly. Or maybe you're someone who's really passionate about something and you want a job that aligns with that, you know?
Hmm.
You could say, I'm really passionate about whatever it is, and I'm looking for a company that shares my commitment to a specific value, you know? I think my skills and experience would be valuable to a company that's trying to make a difference in this area.
That's awesome. It shows they're not just looking for a paycheck. They actually care about what the company stands for.
Right. And remember, even if you're leaving for a reason that's not so positive, like maybe you were laid off or the company downsized, you can still frame it in a way that shows you're resilient and proactive, you know?
How would you do that?
Well, instead of focusing on the bad stuff, focus on what you learned and how it prepared you for something new. So you could say, due to some unforeseen circumstances, my role was eliminated. However, I use this time to mention things like taking classes, networking, or freelancing. And then you could say, I'm now eager to use these new skills and experiences at a company that needs someone adaptable and resourceful.
That's amazing you turned a negative situation into something positive. It's like you're
Yeah.
saying, hey, life threw me a curveball, but I rolled with it and I'm even better now.
Exactly. It's all about looking at things from a different angle and finding the good stuff. And this reminds me of something we haven't talked about yet, which is how important it is to tailor your answer not just to the company, but to the specific person who's reading it.
Oh, so like trying to think about the hiring manager and what they might be looking for.
Exactly. Do your research on the company, the industry, even the hiring manager. If you can figure out what their perspective is and what might resonate with them.
So if you know they're really into sustainability, you might want to mention how you're interested in eco-friendly stuff, even if it's not directly related to the job.
That's a perfect example. It shows that you did your homework and that you're genuinely interested in the company and what they care about. It also makes you stand out from all the other applicants who are just sending generic resumes.
Okay, so we're really taking this reason for leaving thing to a whole new level.
Right.
It's not just about filling in a blank. It's about telling your story, showing off your skills and your values,
Yeah.
and what you want to do with your career. And it's about being smart and making sure your answer speaks to the company and the people who are reading it.
Right. It's about being thoughtful and intentional and using this as a chance to really shine.
I feel like I'm getting so much out of this conversation.
No.
I'm starting to see this whole reason for leaving thing in a whole new light.
Mm.
It's not just a formality. It's a chance to make a real connection with potential employers.
You got it. It's a chance to show them who you are, what you believe in, and why you're the perfect fit.
This has been so helpful. But before we move on, I have one more question.
Yeah.
What about when you're leaving for a reason that's not really positive or career related?
Yeah.
Like what if it's something personal that you don't feel comfortable sharing?
That's a really good question, and it's something a lot of people struggle with. It's
Yeah.
important to remember that you don't have to share personal things that you don't want to. The important thing is to be honest without oversharing and to focus on the positive parts of moving on.
So how do you do that?
Well, instead of saying something vague, like personal reasons, you could say, I'm looking for a new opportunity that's a better fit for my current goals and priorities.
Oh, I like that.
It's honest without being too specific, and it lets you talk about what you're looking for in the future.
Yeah, you're kind of acknowledging that there are reasons without having to say what they are.
Exactly. And remember, you can always go into more detail in an interview if you want to, but on the application, it's usually best to keep it short and professional.
Okay, so even when it's something tricky, we can still write an answer that's honest and professional and focuses on our career.
Absolutely. And this whole conversation is making me realize that there's something else about this reason for leaving that we haven't really talked about.
Oh, what's that?
It's about realizing that this isn't just about getting a job. It's about taking charge of your career and making choices that feel right for you, you know?
Wow. So it's not just about impressing employers. It's about being true to yourself and making a career that feels good.
Mm. Exactly. It's about using this simple question on the application to do some real soul searching and make choices about your future.
I love that it's like we're turning a job application into a chance to grow and figure out what we really want. So
Yeah.
we've been talking about how to answer that reason for leaving section strategically and really thoughtfully.
And how that can actually help us understand our own career goals even better.
Yeah, it's like this one little question opens up this whole big conversation about what we want from our work lives.
And it's something we should be thinking about all the time, not just when we need a new job.
So it's more than just something you check off on an application. It's like an ongoing thing.
Right. It's about regularly checking in with yourself and seeing where you are, where you want to be, and if your current situation is still working for you.
That's so true. But what about when you realize it's time for a change? How do you actually make that happen?
Yeah.
It can be scary to leave something you're used to, even if you know it's not right anymore.
Oh, it definitely can be. But, one thing I find helpful is thinking of a career change as a journey, not just a destination.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just about getting the perfect job. It's about the whole process of getting there.
Exactly. And that process can involve so many things like networking, learning new skills, exploring different fields, or even just taking some time to think about what really matters to you.
It's like you're collecting all these pieces of a puzzle, and each piece helps you see the bigger picture.
And sometimes those pieces come from the most unexpected places. A conversation with a friend, a book you read, volunteer. All these things can teach you about yourself and your career.
So you're saying it's okay if your career path isn't a straight line.
Exactly. And those twists and turns can often lead to the best experiences.
It's like sometimes you have to get a little lost to find your way.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, it's okay to change your mind, too. Our goals change and our priorities change. It's totally normal to adjust your path as you go.
That's good to hear, because sometimes I feel like I should have it all figured out. But really, I'm still learning, and that's okay.
It is. And being curious and willing to learn is what keeps things interesting and keeps you motivated.
So it's not about knowing everything. It's about being open to what comes your way
Yeah.
and trusting that you'll figure it out.
Exactly. And one of the best parts of that journey is that feeling of accomplishment when you overcome obstacles and reach your goals, big or small.
It's like we're not just building a career. We're building resilience and confidence and learning more about ourselves along the way.
And that's something you can take with you no matter what path you choose.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the reason for leaving, we want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
This is about more than just getting your next job. It's about starting this lifelong journey of figuring out who you are and what kind of work makes you happy.
It's about being in charge of your own path, being true to yourself, and always being open to new things.
Because the best career is the one that aligns with what you care about, what makes you passionate, and your own unique vision for the future. So we'll leave you to think about your own reason for leaving and what it says about where you're headed. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.